So hello, guys. Again, we review in this destruction of the Americas, part 7, when the survivors wake up. So let's try to do it a little bit faster than the first time.
Of that culture, all its symbols, artifacts, etc. are put into some box to which they do not belong. That's why the main history is so often ridiculously inconsistent.
Yeah, that's right. I'd agree with that.
So this is the flag of the Mi'kmaq nation. So what they're telling me is that the Christian fanatics brought this symbol as well to America, and they put also the symbol of Islam, at least that's how it is labeled in the official history as well. No, they didn't. Actually, this symbol, this flag, has survived from the older times when the cross and the crescent, and also with the star that goes together with the crescent, when they were together, when all these religions were one and the same. If the Mi'kmaq nation had as a symbol any of these three symbols here, like separately, then I could believe that they came up with this idea independently, or if it is across the conquistadors gave them that idea. But the chances to combine exactly these three symbols and to make it like their main coat of arms, and by pure chance that happens to be the main symbol also of the Empire of the Survivors, well, that's a little bit too unlikely to be true. An old photograph of Native American warrior with double-headed eagle.
Okay, but what is about this flag before? I didn't understand. Why do you show it for? But whatever, maybe we'll get it later.
So, as we said, these symbols are all over both Americas. And always, we are told they're colonial. But sometimes the truth transpires, because along with them in these churches with these symbols, we see inscriptions like this. This is with Cyrillic letters. So what, the Spanish conquistadors brought that as well?
So that just another proof about so-called Slavic origins or whatever of this empire, because ants were originally from the place which is now called Ukraine, and Ukraine is geographical, not the country. So whatever.
Or what about the antique statues found all over South America?
So she's talking about antiques after ants. Ants are those who Greeks were calling Hyperboreans, and so on and so forth.
America. Officially, they are also labeled as colonial, but these are clearly antique, what most people call Roman style statues. Look at the helmets, look at the spears. This is a Neptune, pagan god, from the point of view of the missionaries and conquistadors. So did those
So Neptune is Greek, and for Slavic it's knee. So whatever.
absolutely fanatic missionaries who were burning people alive with their books because they were pagan, did they in their off time, in their
Pagan means Slavic, or the pre-religion, the legion, because religion is the legion which was collected one more time. Legion, which is league, which is union or whatever. Community is also legion.
free time wear miniskirts, forget that they're Christians, and build statues of the pagan gods?
Pagan gods are really the ancestors of the ants.
It's not just Neptune who seems to be wearing a single vine leaf only. Also the ladies, they're barely dressed.
Because it was hot, it was another climate. The climate was better.
There are plenty of aqueducts in America, the highest concentration being in Mexico. They're in no way different from the aqueducts that people call Roman in Europe. The looks is the same, the building style, the techniques used, absolutely everything. And as far as I understand, one of these aqueducts, found in the center of Mexico City, is directly built to feed with water an ancient native city. And yet we are told that all these aqueducts are colonial. What? Those people who came and murdered millions started such a large-scale construction. Unbelievable. All these photographs are only from America. No European aqueducts here on these photographs.
So okay, well, they probably were built by people who looked white, who had European clothes, so they were probably Tartarian, because Tartarian looked that way. They looked just like any other medieval picture person. They looked just the same. So that's why probably they had something like memories about who were building it, and they said they were built by Europeans. So Europeans probably thought that was conquistadors, but probably not, because we see they're just like Romans. So Roman is probably this saint Roman Empire that we had in Europe, and it was the first separate part of the Tataria from the western part. So probably they had war, and probably this is what we know as Eastern and Western Roman empires, which one had the capital in Rome and another was capital in current Istanbul, or that time it was called Constantinopolis, whatever. So, and the third capital was, which the ancient capital was St. Petersburg or Alexandria. So Alexandria was the northern part of this, and it was like uniting all this infrastructure. And it all aligned to Alexandria, and Alexandria is aligned to the whatever in pyramids in Egypt.
So those murderers built them? Even if we assume that the colonialists didn't build them themselves, but taught the local people how to do it, still it is very suspicious, because these are very complex, actually engineering things. Look at the ants on the top. Those are people. This is huge. This requires lots
Look, she said ants on the top. She's really funny.
of knowledge. And also experience. You don't just come up with such things. You don't start with such complex stuff. It makes much more sense to suggest that the aqueducts were built by the same culture in both America and Europe and Asia, since they were always connected. Of course, the knowledge of building aqueducts could have been easily transmitted as well. This doesn't mean that all aqueducts are
Knowledge is not transmitted. Knowledge is like internet, but in other type of perspective that they had, and they just didn't have to transfer anything. They just got it from the libraries of the internet and were taught by the teachers. So just everybody knew it because it was everywhere. so it doesn't have to be transported, because they had another type of transportation which we know about, pneumatic tunnels, and they had SIG machines between the cells. So that's why we have so many races, because people from other cells were transporting and migrating. So just like in other big cities, they have migration. So, and at a certain point, those SIG machines were cut down, shut down, and that's why we had only inside cell communication, which was also very, very technological, and that's the communication that was left in the Tartarian Empire, and that's what we don't have right now.
Colombian. Actually, the opposite. Most probably, the majority of them were built after the conquest. Don't forget what is the Reformation all about. It's a very bloody war in Europe and America, and actually worldwide, as we are gonna see in the future episodes. But all that the parasitic forces could do at this time is place their own people in government positions.
So when we talk about the parasitic forces, what are the parasitic forces? No, don't even mention the parasitic forces if you can say what are the parasitic forces itself, because nobody knows them in, like, and nobody can prove anything. We just have to guess with this ancient text. We just have to guess to see who is right now a puppet of those forces, who are the planners. And the planners lead up to the leaders, which also could be looking just like us, because if you understand, we're in a cell community. We cannot be transferred without the permission of those who control this cell. The only thing that is working is to be born here right now, because SIG machines are shut down, and nobody can be transferred with this physical body. Everything is under control. You have to understand that, because when you talk about parasitic forces, parasitic forces are those who are under us in this so-called Navi dimension, the dimension that we go on while we go sleeping. And that's how they can get inside the body and do certain actions to establish the Baba, or so-called babe, or so-called baby, or so-called woman gate into this world. That's why all this Christian mythology also lead to somebody capturing some woman and entering some type of hell gate for all those demons to be born in this woman, and also to come out in this physical world. But let's continue.
The people, the common people, were still relatively free. They could also travel without restrictions, not like us nowadays. And even though the newly appointed governments all over the world during the Reformation period started gradually tightening the knot of tyranny amongst the citizens, it really seems that the process was much slower in those days. Like, for example, in the current moment, it's escalating very rapidly. The masses, the people, were still very much connected to their higher spirits. They couldn't be cheated easily to voluntarily surrender their freedom, like us, for example. Few shallow lies on TV, and we go like sheep to vote for some rotten, corrupt potato politician, and after that we comfort ourselves. But we live in democracy, right? Because we choose our politicians, we vote for them, right?
Right, but if you don't talk about the politics within your paradigm of changing the historical view on the things, you have to engage the political atmosphere inside this, so people can understand how this correlates this or that occasion, this or that action, what is the chain of these possibilities and the window of opportunities that we get from each and every certain action of any politician.
No, we only choose our prison superintendents, not the presidents. So what did the masses do after the terrible Reformation nightmare? Still, with whatever freedom they had, they created something beautiful out of the ashes of their destroyed culture, and that is now very mistakenly labeled as new classical style. Actually, when we take into consideration the shifts in history, like for example the 1,000-year shift, when many events were artificially shifted with 1,000 years back in time, and few other.
And I'll have to stop this because 1,000 year shift is only a theory. Don't take it as a serious proof. We can only see that they were based on the edited books and edited reference. So how can you be based on the edited reference and have a good theory on things? You cannot be based. So since you don't have the originals from back like 1,000 years ago, and you don't have those manuscripts non-edited, you cannot be proven anything with this 1,000 year shift. So just to take it as a theory, and that's it.
Shifts were there. When we look at this as well and all the other factors, it actually turns out that the new classical style did not appear out of some sort of strange sentiments, but it was a direct continuation of the antique style. There was no gap when people forgot how to build in antique style. This gap is an illusion because of this artificial 1,000 years. The new classical style was, so to say, the last flower to blossom on the tree of the culture of the survivors. Interesting house in South America. The wooden decoration is identical to that on the Russian traditional houses. Same in San Francisco.
Because San Francisco was purely a Russian territory after the Tartaria split. So that's why.
The gold that comes from each and every gold mine slightly differs in chemical composition from the others. And that's why, with the help of a chemical test, one can actually find out the gold mine from which the material for the given golden object came from. And so once somebody tested an antique Russian golden item, and the result was pretty unexpected. Actually, the object was made of Peruvian gold. So one more confirmation. In the period that we call antiquity, the people were not divided by the oceans, as the modern historians always present the picture to us. Probably it was just the opposites. They were connected by oceans.
Yeah, if it's a small souvenir, why not? When you travel like in pneumatic tunnels, you might as well get yourself a bag of some souvenirs from whatever South America and take it back home to Siberia and show it to your bear.
And another example, a relatively more recent, probably from New York. And what are these two Slavic figures doing over there in New York? Every detail of their outfit is precisely Slavic traditional, even in the small details.
You know, one guy is living in some type of Brighton Beach in New York. So that Brighton Beach is like a Russian neighborhood, and he was walking around those beaches, and then he was searching for some megalithic blocks, and it was really a lot of blocks there. There were a lot of blocks and a lot of Slavic runic um, carvings, and so he was like, "Wow!" Then he went to Central Park. He also found some Slavic um, writings on those rocks. There are plenty of rocks there, and so he found, and he was like having like 3 or 4 videos about it.
On the left, we have a Slavic monk, and on the right, a Slavic warrior. These are ancient Mayan figurines exhibited in the Museum of Toronto. The people that are depicted wear turbans. Yet one more proof for a connection with Asia.
Uh, if you learned about Columbus, he was thinking he was going to India. So that's a good hint for us.
Now here on this photograph, not only we have the turban chap, but also his friend has got a snake on the forehead, exactly like the Egyptians. And a few more examples of unusual headwear amongst native Indians. And the people who are having those turban-like things on their head are also sitting the way the Asians sit.